think I'm going to talk about the stage of peace that everybody wants to get to. I think a lot of people are in their journey of moving through a lot of hard things and getting to a place where they don't know where that peace is that is supposed to be at the end of the tunnel. And I think that there's specific things that a person needs to do in order to get to that level of peace. There's actually specific skills, I should say. There's specific skills because it's not the journey of like spiritual awakening, the journey of self-development is not really about learning to be at peace and learning to stay at peace. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're actually trying to do is learn how to be angry and learn how to be sad and learn how to feel our guilt and learn how to feel our shame and learn how to feel our fear and our hurt. It's actually about learning how to feel the hard emotions, and that way you have the skills to know what to do when those emotions arise. You can recognize them when they arise. You have the tools to apply when they arise, and therefore you can get yourself back into a state of peace a lot quicker. So it's not about learning how to be peaceful. It's not about learning how to stay in a state of peace at all times. It's about learning how to navigate through the experiences when you are not at peace. And that's how you're going to be able to stay at peace in a state of peace more often, because now you know how to support yourself through those experiences. Okay, so it looks like there is I think what you're saying, I will advocate for my needs over considering others' emotions. I think you're saying that that's a boundary of yours. I'll advocate for my needs over. I hear what you're saying in that. I don't know that that's exactly a boundary. I can give you an example of a boundary. An example of a boundary, a very simple example of a boundary, is not don't see, we think boundaries are telling somebody how to act. We're like, this is what the behavior that I want you to have. This is how I want you to treat me. This is how I want you to behave. But actually, that's not what it is. Boundaries are telling yourself how you're going to behave. So, for example, you're not telling somebody, hey, please don't call me after 9 p.m. You're saying, I don't accept calls after 9 p.m. And the thing that I put here, this prompt, means that because a boundary is a promise to yourself, in this example, the boundary is I don't accept calls after 9 p.m. So the boundary is I don't accept calls after 9 p.m. So the only person that really needs to know that boundary is me, because it doesn't even involve the other person. You're not telling them how to be. You're not telling them how to behave. You are promising yourself that you're going to behave in a certain way. And your promise to yourself is that you don't answer calls after 9 p.m. You don't respond, to communication after 9 p.m. And then the only thing you have to do is honor that boundary for yourself. Honor the promise that you've made to yourself. Right? So you can tell the other person, but you don't have to. I do think it's good practice, and that's kind of your own discernment of when you should tell and when you shouldn't tell. And a lot of times the journey's pretty messy when we when we kind of try to navigate through those experiences at first. But the point is that a boundary is about how you're going to behave. It's not about how the other person's going to behave towards you. So okay. So, my dears, please also let me know if you have any questions as well, because I would be happy to answer specific questions. Sometimes it's easier to talk about specific examples. So, another example of a boundary might be, Okay, let me say it this way. A lot of people think about boundaries like this. I don't accept when somebody speaks negatively to me, or I don't accept when somebody yells at me. I don't accept people that talk to me rudely. So a lot of people frame boundaries in that way, like I don't accept. And the truth is think about what causes suffering for you. What causes suffering is when you focus on things that you can't control. When you live in a state of resistance towards what is, that's going to create suffering in just a very general sense, okay? Now, when you come up with a statement that says, I don't accept, literally, inherently, you're resisting something. There's a resistance that's going to cause anger, resentment, and that's going to keep you in a state of tension. When you say something like, I don't accept when people do this, I don't accept this kind of behavior. The truth is, it's actually not for you to accept or not accept. The behavior is the behavior. Other people are showing up how they know how to show up. So you don't have to control their behavior in order to stay safe. See, I think a lot of times we go through this journey, especially like so many people have been through therapy and they think they understand what a boundary is. They think they know how they should be treated, how they deserve to be treated. And there's truth in that. But the truth in it has more to do with your own behavior than it does anybody else. See, because what it comes back to always is you. So when somebody is rude to you, you don't have to control that they are rude. You don't have to force them to not be rude. What you need to go back to is, what is my promise for myself when this happens? So boundaries are a constant adherence to your own promises to yourself, which, by the way, creates trust in yourself. So you realize that you don't actually have to control the way everybody treats you. You don't actually have to control the way everybody behaves around you in order to feel safe. As a matter of fact, you can access safety no matter what's going on around you. And I really want you to think about how much more powerful that is. Think about these two scenarios. In one scenario, you're telling everybody around you how they need to behave, so you're actually trying to control how everybody behaves around you in order for you to feel safe. That sounds exhausting. The other scenario is, it doesn't matter how other people behave, because at any time you have access to your own safety. You are always at peace. You always feel safe because your peace and your safety doesn't depend on how other people act and react. That's empowering. The challenge is getting there. And that's where learning the right tools comes into play, because it is a matter of learning the right skills and having the right tools to apply at any given scenario. And guess what? Even learning the skills and the tools and then applying them is you learning how to trust yourself. The whole thing, my friends, the whole thing, the whole game, the boundaries, the tools, the application of the tools, the whole game is you learning to trust yourself. Because the truth is, you wouldn't need anything to change around you if you truly trusted yourself. If you truly knew that you had the skills, that you knew how to react, that you knew what you were going to do in every single scenario. When you're triggered, you know what you're going to do. The only reason that you try to set boundaries and control people and tell them how to act is because you don't completely trust yourself yet in handling your own triggers. Okay, Catman said boundaries are easier for me with friends and family, but how do I set boundaries at work? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I kind of gave an example of this in the beginning, but this could be a good boundary to apply for a work scenario. So a work scenario boundary could be that, some people might say like, oh, please don't call me after 9 p.m. But your boundary, you're not asking anybody to change anything. You're saying, I don't accept calls or I don't respond to emails after 9 p.m. Everything should be phrased in the I. Here's what I do when this happens. Here's what I'm going to do. And because I don't know exactly what your scenario is in the work, if you feel like you want to share a little bit more, Catman, about any specific scenario, that might be helpful. I find it interesting that you feel more comfortable setting boundaries with friends and family. I feel like that's actually where a lot of people find that to be harder. But yeah, I think at work, it's really determining what level of engagement you're comfortable with, and then just communicating that to people. As in, I don't respond to emails after 9 p.m., for example. I think with work, a lot of it is just like telling people, like, that example specifically, telling people what you're doing. Okay, Kimster, this is an example of what I was talking about earlier that is not a boundary. I will no longer tolerate defensiveness. That's not a boundary, my dear. That goes along the lines of what I was saying earlier when people phrase their boundaries like, I will not accept this type of behavior. That's not a boundary because, and kind of ironically, actually, and even in saying I will no longer tolerate defensiveness, you're kind of being defensive towards defensiveness because there's a resistance that you have. In saying I will no longer tolerate or I will not accept, those kinds of phrases automatically create this resistance that you have towards an experience in your life. And whenever you're creating a resistance towards something in your life, that's not peaceful. That's not something that's going to be able, that's not something that you can ultimately get to feel peace, because you're inherently creating a resistance towards an experience because you're defining it as a negative experience, right? So in this case, I would say that what a better way of approaching this would be is I'm kind of thinking that you probably have certain people in mind, right? Like there's certain people in your life who get defensive with you. And those people are probably the people that you have in mind when you say I no longer tolerate defensiveness. Now, that you think the boundary is I will no longer tolerate defensiveness. That's not the boundary. There's multiple ways that you can approach this type of scenario. So think of like one of those people that gets defensive. What are the scenarios in which they get defensive? Do they get defensive when you try to have like emotional conversations with them? Okay. So now the boundary is I will no longer have emotional conversations with them. Because guess what? If this person is demonstrating a pattern of defensiveness, they're not going to change like that just because you're telling them I don't tolerate that. Mm-mm. And it's not going to make the relationship better by you saying I don't tolerate defensiveness, so don't get defensive. And do you see how that comes off very defensive? So it's not about trying to control somebody else's behavior. What it's actually about, and please listen closely to this, it is actually about your behavior, because what's happening is you're engaging with this person in a way that's not serving you because they're getting defensive by whatever way that you're engaging with them. That means that they don't have to change, you have to change. So if you're engaging with them in a way where you're trying to have emotional conversations with them and they're demonstrating defensiveness, you can tell from that pattern that probably that type of conversation is above their capability level. They're telling you where they're at, and you're not listening. You're still expecting something different. So instead of saying, I don't tolerate defensiveness, actually, my promise to myself is that this person is not capable of handling that kind of conversation, so I'm not going to have that type of conversation with them. My promise to myself is I don't have this XYZ type of conversation with this person because they've demonstrated that they can't navigate that in an appropriate way that feels comfortable for me. So I no longer do that. Do you see? It comes back to you and your behavior. You have to change. They don't have to change. They're on their own journey. They'll change in their own time and in their own way. But if they've demonstrated that they are still going to get defensive when you try to have certain types of conversations with them, it's not on them to change anymore. It's on you. You have to change. That's one thing that you can do. The second type of boundary that you can set in this scenario is, and actually, I mean, honestly, I think that first part is incredibly important. The second piece to it would be if they start getting defensive with you, then my promise to myself is I leave the conversation. I tap out of the conversation. I walk away. I leave the room. I leave the house. Hang up the phone. My promise to myself. See, because we're not trying to control their behavior. We're not trying to change how they act and how they react. They are showing us where they're at. The thing that needs to change is you, your expectation of them to change and be different than how they are. See, you want them to be how you want them to be, which is not defensive, but that's not where they're at. They're showing you that's not where they're at. So it is actually about accepting that they can't meet you there. And there's hard emotions that come up from that. There might be anger, there might be sadness, there might be fear, there might be disappointment. Those are your responsibility, and I can talk about that later, about how that's part of the tools. That's part of the tool set that is our responsibility to build for ourselves, because your responsibility is not changing them. Your responsibility is to address the hard emotions that come up for yourself at the fact that they are demonstrating that they can't change in the way that you want. That's your responsibility. Your own emotions are your responsibility, and then your own promises to yourself, your own boundaries are your responsibility. So thank you for sharing that, because that was actually a really great example. Okay, P. I'm glad that you're starting to relate. Matthew, I struggle with this, especially financial boundaries. Oh, interesting. It's hard to naturally be like that. Yeah, P, but it's just building the habit. It's just building the habit, like, and that's why I always say it's a matter of a few tools. It's a matter of developing a few tools, emotional support tools for yourself. And then because that's, I think, the number one most important thing is to learn the skills to support yourself through the hard emotions that come up in this journey. Because once we realize that we don't really vibe with someone's behavior, then we go right to, we got to change their behavior. If we want to continue a relationship with them, or if they want to continue a relationship with us, they have to change. And then we hit up against this wall where it's like, ooh, they're not changing. Or they change for a little while, and then they go right back to their old habits, their old behaviors. And then you get angrier and angrier, and you think, like, why aren't they changing? Don't they love me enough? Isn't this important enough? I've told them multiple times. And you gotta catch yourself in that, because that's when you have to have that moment of like, oh, I have to change. It's not for them to change, it's for me to change now. And the hard part about that, and the reason we resist it so much and we keep trying to force them to change, is because we're scared of losing the relationship. And we're scared that if we start approaching it differently, that they won't want to continue the relationship. Or that there's this unknown change that we won't be able to handle. But the truth is, another person is much more willing to have a relationship with you if you accept where they're at, and if you even accept the surface level, perhaps, of what maintaining that relationship might mean. Please do like and share the live, my dears. Mazera, I love that beautiful words. Thank you, my dear. I'm glad that that resonates. Guilt, Heather's Feathers said, you're welcome, Forever Dreaming. I'm glad that it helped. If you have any other specific questions, please do put them in the chat, but I think that that's the most important piece in my opinion, is and the reason why we cling so much to these rules as boundaries, which is not accurate. And when I say rules, I mean the language that we use, the expectation that we have, the way that we try to control other people's behavior. It's the I don't tolerate this. It's I don't accept this behavior. Like, whenever you find yourself saying those types of things, you got to try to catch it, because the thing that tells me, the thing that language tells me, is that you still have anger towards that person. Because when you're saying something like, I don't tolerate this, do you feel like there's like this energy in it of like, there's an angry, there's an active energy, there's a tension. And if you want to be at peace in your life, you can't hold that. So what that means is that if you catch yourself feeling that way, that's a sign that you have anger to feel. I did just post a video about how to navigate your anger. That's in my link tree in my bio. And it's a life-changing skill, in my opinion. If you do feel like you have anger still towards somebody in your life, then I would suggest that you develop a practice to feel your anger. And you can start with that video. Or I'm sorry, I think it's actually an audio. I think it's actually like an audio tutorial. But either way, it's there. It's if you want to check it out. Because the anger, I think a lot of people are stuck in that anger stage right now. So I think this is going to be a really important step for humanity to address its own anger issues. Because see, what we've done so far is so many of us have gone to therapy. So many people have like gotten the help. And then like you uncover all this trauma. And then you're like, what the hell do I do with all of this? Because now I'm like angry at my parents. Now I'm angry at my, exes. I'm angry. I have so much like anger and I don't know what to do with it because they should have done things differently. They shouldn't have treated me this way. And then a lot of people claim that they want to live in peace, that they want to live a peaceful life, like that's the goal. But if that's really what you want, you can't continue to stay in that victim mindset. So, like, radical self-love is an outright rejection of victim mentality. And if you are angry, if you're harboring anger in any form towards anyone, you are harboring victim mentality. And so that will bar you from getting to that state of peace that you're looking for. The state of peace where you can access the peace at any time, the state of unconditional love, a state of joy. And so it's really important that you commit to yourself to gather the tools that you need to be able to process the emotions, in particular right now that I'm speaking about anger, and that you're able to do that on a regular basis to support yourself through the experience of learning how to get yourself back to peace. Because, like I said this earlier, but the goal in this journey is not to learn how to stay in a state of peace. Everybody thinks like, oh, I've got to like be peaceful. I've got to think positively. I've got to like gratitude and all that. No, the goal is not to teach ourselves how to stay in a state of peace. You're going to fail if you try to do that. The goal is actually learning what to do when you dip down into the hard emotions. What do I actually do with my anger? What do I actually do with all this fear and anxiety that I feel in my body, that I feel all the time? What do I actually do with the sadness, the guilt, the shame, the hurt, the confusion, the overwhelm? How do I process these? Because the truth is, the very simple truth is that when you learn what to do with those, when they are there, it is only in being able to successfully and quickly process those emotions to get you back up into a state of peace. Do you see how that actually will put you in a state of peace more often? So it's not about trying to keep yourself up here in like this high vibration state of peace. No. What it is learning how to process quickly when you get down here so that you get yourself back up here. And guess what? This human life is not an easy one. So you're constantly going to be having challenges in your life. You're never going to get to a place where everything in your life is perfect. You don't experience any triggers at any time and like everybody treats you exactly the way you want. That's not going to happen. So we can't wrap ourselves in a bubble, tell everybody around us how they need to treat us in order for us to feel safe, in order for us to have successful relationships. That's not that's not an empowering way to live, and that's not a peaceful way to live. So what we need to do in this journey of learning how to navigate these hard feelings and getting ourselves back up into a state of peace is we're actually teaching ourselves over and over and over again that we can trust ourselves to get us back up here. That we don't actually need that person to change to get back into a state of peace. We don't actually need that trigger to stop to get back into a state of peace. We don't need our finances to be perfect. We don't need our lifestyle to be exactly where we want it to be. We don't need all these external things to be in the perfect place at the perfect time in order for us to access peace. What we're teaching ourselves over and over and over again. And what I mean by that is you learn the tool once, but then you practice it over and 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 over. You apply it constantly. And that is you teaching yourself, oh, it actually doesn't matter what happens to me in my external environment. I can always get back to this. When I dip down here, I can always get back up. And over time, you teach yourself that you can trust yourself to do that, so that the challenges that you face in life don't feel so challenging anymore, because now you trust yourself to get yourself back into a state of peace no matter what happens. See? Okay, Wild Zoo Guy, the boundary I have for myself is that I will not dilute myself to be in a relationship. Okay, my dear, but that's kind of general, so we need a little bit more specific. Boundaries are specific. Like I said earlier, a boundary is I don't respond to emails after 9 p.m. Another boundary could be when somebody speaks to me, when somebody raises their voice at me, I leave the room. And usually, because we all have those particular people that trigger us the most. So, these are usually for those people. Like boundaries, let me just say this too. Boundaries are for people who you inherently can't speak your truth to, who you inherently, it's not going to go well if you try to tell them, and probably you already have. That's when the boundary comes into play, right? You've tried to tell this particular person a few times that hey, I kind of feel a little bit hurt when you speak to me that way, and it doesn't go well, right? They can't hear you. Boundaries are inherently for people who are not going to be able to hear you. And boundaries inherently create space and distance because you're removing access to yourself in some way, right? So in my earlier example, if somebody gets defensive or somebody gets kind of like blamey or they raise their voice when you try to have like an emotional conversation with them or you try to speak your truth, what they're demonstrating to you is that they're not capable of hearing your truth. We take it personally, but it's actually not personal. What they're demonstrating is their incapability with just where they're at in their own journey. They're not capable of having that type of conversation with you. So it's not on them to learn how to have that conversation with you. It's on you to actually learn how to deal with the hard feelings of recognizing, oh, they can't have that conversation with me. Then you have to feel the sadness and the hurt, the disappointment, maybe the anger. And then it's your responsibility to set the appropriate boundary, make the appropriate promise to yourself that I no longer have those types of emotional conversations with this person. And if this person ever raises their voice at me, I immediately leave the room. I immediately hang up the phone. See how it's all what I do? It's not on you to change them. And the power that you feel when you actually start putting these into action, well, I'll say first, there's going to be anxiety in it too because you're changing your behavior towards somebody. They're going to react. They might be confused, so they might try to force old behaviors. But once you start to get to a place where you finally have applied it multiple times and you trust yourself to walk away, you're building trust with yourself. This entire journey is about building trust with yourself. Because guess what? If you do want to, like, a lot of people talk about purpose. A lot of people want to find their purpose. A lot of people want to live a more purposeful life. But purpose isn't just this like thing that's going to be like totally beautiful that once you connect with it, you're absolutely totally fulfilled. The path to purpose and then the path even on the path of purpose means that you're going to have to do brave things in your life. The path to purpose means that you're going to have to show up and be courageous. And so a part of this journey is also teaching yourself in these seemingly small moments, but they're actually huge moments, of showing up for yourself and having the courage to honor the promise that you made to yourself. And every time you honor that promise to yourself, you build trust with yourself. You build trust so that the next time you have the courage to do it again. And maybe the next time you have courage to do something different, to honor the next promise to yourself. That's the only way it's going to happen. Middle Age says, I have lived in rage for 40 years. This sounds like it's prime time for you to develop the skills to address that rage. And I do have that tool available in my link tree. Wild Zoo Guy, anger is one of my weakest emotions, well, least actionable, rather. I'm not sure what you mean by least actionable, but yeah, anger. I think anger is a big problem because we don't know what to do with it. But it simultaneously is one that feels powerful, so we cling to it. So that's why anger is actually kind of addicting, because anger masks other more vulnerable emotions. Anger is not a root emotion. You can't just be angry. The reason you're angry is because it feels more powerful than what's actually underneath the anger, which is always hurt, sadness, fear. But those feel so vulnerable and we don't know what to do with those either. So instead of holding on to it, instead of addressing the fear and the sadness and the deep, deep hurt, we stay angry. Because that feels powerful. Why? Because when we're angry at somebody, we put ourselves on a pedestal. We put ourselves in this place of superiority towards the other person that feels powerful because they did something wrong. You can always point the finger at them. So we cling to the anger because we feel justified. And if we actually had to go down here and feel the hurt, what do we do with that? And by the way, I also have a video available on how to feel your hard feelings, like hurt, fear. Those are probably the biggest ones, but also sadness, guilt, shame. Heather's Feathers, thank you, my dear. Please do like and share the live. Heather's, you're right. Also, not to be judgmental with your emotions. Exactly, not to judge the emotions that come up. Wild Sugai, I don't associate with those folks. I don't know which folks you mean. That's why I have no friends. I have no boundaries to put then because people don't associate with me. Yeah, so actually I want to address that. Heather, I go live on Tuesdays at 7:30 Eastern time, my dear. Thank you, and I do hope you'll join again. Okay, actually, yeah, you're saying some important things, Wild Zugai. So, I actually do want to address that, this experience of not having friends, or this experience of not being, like, not feeling like you have close relationships, or, see, I think that, okay, how do I want to say this? Hold on a second, I gotta drink water. So, first of all, it is absolutely 100% possible to have a relationship with somebody who you have harbored anger for. It is absolutely completely possible to have a relationship with somebody who you felt rage towards, who has completely let you down. And I speak a lot about this in terms of like family of origin, because that's oftentimes where our biggest traumas occur and our biggest wounds occur, with our parents, siblings, that kind of origin environment. And I am absolutely not a proponent of cutting people out of your life unless it really feels like, a dangerous situation. But I think that what's more helpful is actually utilizing those relationships to learn the skills that you need to learn, because those people are going to trigger you. And you need to be triggered in order to learn how to stay in your peace. Now, that doesn't mean that you see them all the time. Maybe it's somebody that you see once a year for, half an hour. It doesn't actually matter. Like, that's where you get to be. That's where you get to take back your power. Because here's the other thing. I don't really think that avoiding the people that trigger you is the best strategy, because when you completely avoid somebody that triggers you, somebody that's hurt you, somebody that you have anger towards, what you're actually telling yourself is that you have something to be afraid of. So, and you might not actually like tell yourself that in those words in your mind, but that's what you're telling your body. Because when you are triggered, when you feel that anxiety, that's fear. So you're telling your body that it should be afraid of that person. So I would say definitely distance, like emotional distance, physical distance, is absolutely important in those relationships. And what is more empowering is learning the tools so that you can show up in an empowered way and access your peace even when they're around. and that you set the right boundaries for yourself, that you actually make the right promises to yourself. So for example, in what I just said, this particular person that triggers you, it's not that you don't have to have a relationship with them, but what are your boundaries with them? So maybe your boundary is, I only text with them. If they call me, I don't answer it. Maybe your boundary is, I don't see them one-on-one. Maybe your boundary is, I only see them, at one particular holiday. I only talk to them in group settings. I only say hi and bye to them. I only see them for a half an hour or an hour or something. So you actually have way more control over how you engage with that person than you actually think. And I think that it's way more empowering to start to really tune into what feels powerful and what feels right for you, as you relate to that person, instead of cutting them out. Like, decide what feels better for you. Decide what kind of relationship you want it to be. Right? Like, again, you don't have to cut them out, but it can be whatever it has to be for you right now in order for you to feel good about the relationship. And I'm telling you, that's way more empowering. It's way more empowering than just avoiding someone altogether forever. That doesn't feel good in the long run. Because I will also say this, in the long run, like, there's something inside of you that also knows you've contributed to that relationship being what it is. So you can point the finger as much as you want that they've done this and they've done that. But once you stop pointing the finger, even if they're responsible for 70% of the problems, you could say, like, you're still responsible for 30%. Like, every single relationship is both persons' responsibility. So if you're in a relationship, if there's somebody in your life who you have a complicated relationship with, guess what? You've helped create that. So when you, from this very kind of entitled and arrogant place of I'm cutting them out, blah, 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 you're not actually taking accountability for what your part in it was. And to be honest, what your part in it was probably not showing up authentically by setting these boundaries in the first place. And you'll be surprised by when you start setting these types of boundaries and you start taking distance from this person. They might push back, but I can guarantee you're going to feel way better about the relationship. And it doesn't matter if they push back. It doesn't matter if they're confused. Because guess what? Your responsibility is not their confusion. Your responsibility is not their hurt. Those things are their responsibility. All that you're responsible for are the promises that you've made to yourself. So let them be hurt. Let them be confused. Your responsibility is your promises to yourself. So if I've promised that I only text with this person and they try to call me and I don't pick up, and they're confused about it, they're texting me, hey, why aren't you picking up? That's not my responsibility. I could just say, hey, not interested in chatting. Not in the mood to chat. And if you do that multiple times, they're probably eventually going to get the point, but you see what I'm saying? Honestly, I think this information is gold if you're trying to live a peaceful life. Oh yeah, and I wanted to say this about, when I read what Wild Zoo Boy was saying about not having friends or relationships. Okay, because this is actually really important, because life is not about isolating yourself to such a degree that you can't have relationships with anybody unless they act exactly like you want them to. Life is not about having relationships with only people that you feel seen, heard, and understood by. So many of us are in this victim mindset place where you're this person doesn't see or hear me. I don't feel seen and heard and understood in this relationship. Relationships are not for you to be seen and heard and understood. That's not what they're for. okay? Relationships are for connection. So some people in your life you're going to connect with at a very surface level. Like, we can talk about their weather and that's that. And that might be a parent or a sibling or I don't know, whoever, extended family. Some people are going to meet you here at the surface level. Some people are going to meet you down here at the depths where you do feel seen, heard, and understood. But those people are going to be rare. It's more important that you see, hear, and understand yourself. And there's going to be people in your life everywhere in between. It's not on every person in your life to have to get to this level of depth to meet you. That's impossible. And that would mean that you would live such a lonely life. Because nobody, I'm telling you, even the most perfect partner that you could ever imagine would never be able to see, hear, and understand you at all times. So what I'm noticing in our culture is this desire to be seen, heard, and understood by other people and to have relationships that feel really fulfilling. But in the process, what happens is you end up cutting out and distancing yourself from everybody because nobody can live up to that. And then you just end up being alone. And life is not about being alone. Life is a lot about relationships. Relationships are how we learn. So you don't need everybody around you to see, hear, and understand yourself, to see, hear, and understand you. What you need is to develop some of these tools so that you see, hear, and understand yourself at every single moment. You won't need anybody else to. And then it's a bonus when you meet somebody and they do. But you don't require that from them. Because it's really inauthentic. Even when you're trying to make friends, it's a really inauthentic way of approaching meeting new friends and new people of I want to feel really seen, heard, and understood by this person or by any new friends that I have. You see, you're going into it with an expectation, with a hidden agenda. It's a hidden agenda because you're not going into it in a way that is authentic with the desire to connect with that person, to understand how that person can connect, and to being open to the curiosity of what level can they connect with me? If they can connect with me surface level, okay. And maybe that's not somebody that I really am going to be close friends with. Maybe they can connect with me here. Ooh, and if they can connect with me down here to those depths, that's cool. But that's not anybody else's responsibility to meet you there. You can't go into it with a hidden agenda, or you're always going to expect people to fulfill something in you that you feel is missing. And that's not their role, it's yours. Wild Zoo guy, I process my anger in analysis, but not in reactions. Yeah, but analysis is still not feeling it. So you got to learn to feel it. Anger typically reveals that something's negatively affecting something you love. Okay, that's one way to look at it. I only feel the hard feelings all the time. So it sounds to me like you need to learn how to feel the hard feelings. The only thing that hurts me from my experience is the rejection of connection. Good, you got to feel that. How do you stop wanting to be seen, heard, and understood in your relationships? Gorgeous Hearted asks. You learn how to see, hear, and understand yourself. And that's also why I think the tool of feeling your hard feelings, and I have a video tutorial on that available in my link tree as well. All of the videos are $15 or $25, but that's a steal for a life-changing tool. I still use all of these tools every week. And I would say that the tools are the only way that you're going to build trust in yourself that you do see, hear, and understand yourself at all times. So this yearning that you feel about wanting to feel seen, heard, and understand in relationship and seen, heard, and understood in relationships is going to go away once you start to do that for yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to learn the skill and the tool and then apply the tool towards all of your hard feelings. You have to show up for those hard feelings. You have to show up for the hard things that are going on for you and within you. And then you won't need other people to fulfill that for you. You see, even when you're in a relationship and you have a partner, it's not your partner's responsibility to see all of those things in you. Like, so many people think like, oh, if I just find the right partner, I'll feel like fulfilled. Have this person that will finally understand me, that will be there for me. And I think what we're missing is that even in the best relationship, that partner won't always be able to show up and see you in the way you want to be seen. But if you know how to do that yourself, you don't need them to. And even when there's conflict, the feeling of feelings exercise that I teach that's available there, I think that's like primary. I think that's step 1. Feeling of feelings. Learn how to, and literally what I teach in that practice is what to do, how to do it. I'm not just saying like, oh, you have to sit with it, or you just have to like be with the emotion, or it's like all of that kind of therapy speak that's sort of general. I'm literally telling you what to do with it. And it's so important because even in healthy relationships, let me make this very clear, even in healthy relationships, it's so important that you have the skill to process your own emotions and get back up into a state of peace. Because again, the goal, my friends, is not that we stay in a state of peace all the time. It's that we learn the skills so that when we drop down into fear and into anger and into sadness and into shame and into hurt, that we know what to do with it so that we get ourselves back up here. Because what we're also not doing, even in healthy relationships, even in healthy partnerships, it should not be like, I can only feel at peace if me and my partner talk about this and resolve this right now. Because guess what? Even then, you're putting your peace in their hands. You're putting your peace in the hands of something and someone outside of you. So even in a healthy relationship, you need the skill to be able to know what to do with those hard emotions and to be able to get yourself back into a state of peace. Because guess what? It is only in a state of peace, once you've processed your own emotions, that you can know exactly what to do. It's going to be a soul-aligned decision. Because decision making, when you're down here and you're in anger and you're in sadness and you're in guilt or you're in fear, you don't make the right decisions when you're down there. You might think, I gotta talk to them. And then when you go talk to them, it's all about, I need you to understand how I'm upset. I need you to understand what you did, and I'm angry about it, or I'm scared about this situation, and I need you to hear me. This is where a lot of us are at. We're like, we need to be seen, heard, and understood, so we're like pushing so hard. We need that person to show us that they hear us. But that's really not, it's not like that energy is such like a needy energy. It's such like it's not a helpful energy to go into a hard conversation. And by the way, like, it doesn't have to be a hard conversation once you get yourself back into a state of peace, because once you do process emotion, you get yourself back into a state of peace, you're going into that conversation, you've decided what you're going to do and really what's important, what you want to say and what's important to say. You don't need to say everything. Like the anxious part of you, the fearful version of you, or the angry version of you probably would have said, I need to say all these things. But really the regulated version, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about regulation versus dysregulation. And when we learn to regulate ourselves, when we learn the skill of getting ourselves back up into peace, we enter that conversation in a much calmer energy where we're going to say our truth, we're going to be honest, and we're going to want to hear their truth too. Because we've already validated for ourselves that our anger and our hurt is valid. So, when you go into those types of conversations with all of that, like from that state of fear and anger or whatever, hurt, what you're actually looking for, and I guess here's the thing too, when you want to be so seen, heard, and understood so much by someone, what you're really asking for is validation. What you're really looking for is for them to validate you by listening to you and telling you, yeah, I hear you. Of course. That makes sense. I'm sorry. That's actually the validation you want. You're just looking for it in the other person instead of in yourself. And that's really what the Feeling of Feelings exercise teaches you how to do, is how to feel and validate. And I can guarantee you I've been doing this for 7 years now. Weekly, sometimes multiple times a day, and some of the very hard times. And every time, it's not always right away, but it does happen that I am able to get myself back to peace. Because I'm able to validate my own experience. And then when I do decide to have a conversation with someone, I go into it not needing anything from them because I've already validated my experience. I don't need them to. But I want to talk about it with them. It's also when you get yourself back into a state of peace, you're also able to kind of see the full picture where you can actually see your part too. So you're able to take accountability for your part too. And honestly, like sometimes even just being able to like take your own accountability and open with that totally takes all the all of the tension out of the conversation. Wild Zoo guy. People. Okay, people I despise only get customer service mode. Yeah, you gotta work on that anger and rage, my dear, because even using the word despise is demonstrative of your anger and rage. Okay, don't blame them. Anger keeps you in victim mode. Set boundaries to keep your peace level up. Wait, Heather, I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I'm kind of like behind on some comments, so I'm just kind of reading through them now. Don't blame them. Anger keeps you in victim mode. Set boundaries to keep your peace level up. Yeah, the only thing I would change about that is you're not trying to keep your peace level up. You're trying to learn the skills about what to do when you feel the hard feelings. Because once you allow the energy of the hard feelings to pass through you, you feel and validate them, you'll be able to get yourself back into peace. This is just what I needed. Thank you. You're welcome, Infinite. Please like and share the live, my dears. That's 99.99% of all humans. Literally. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of judgment, Wild Zoo guy, and you gotta work on the anger stuff. I'm not really sure what else to say about that. Purple Hearts. Well, that's a hard pill to swallow, even though I've heard you say this before. I still want. Yeah, but you want to feel seen and heard by you first. That's why the Feeling of Feelings practice. I don't know what you're referring to about the settling. And when they take away your world, crash and burn before your eyes. Yeah, it is lonely to be with just you. That's why you gotta change your perspective on relationships. Purple hearts, I do that for myself, but I also want to share with someone how my day went, well, yeah, that stuff is fine, but that doesn't sound like a deep connection. You could do those things with anyone. But it's arbitrary for them to always understand you if you know. Oh, good, dear future therapist. Oh, I like that name too. Yeah, that's really good. I'm really glad that you like the advice too. And thank you for your service to the world. Enmeshment. Yeah, I did. I probably. Oh, thank you. Our healing is not dependent on external entities. Exactly, travel far. No? Yeah. And you know what? It is okay to have messy conversations, and you are going to have messy conversations. And I think even more so when you have those messy experiences and like things don't go well, or you try to express yourself and it just doesn't work, or maybe there's definitely been moments through my journey where I look back and I kind of cringe at like because I was just learning and I didn't really know exactly how to express something, or I like tried to say like everything and I tried to like say it really fast and it was just like too much, and so I should say one thing, when you go through that journey and you see how challenging it is to even do those things and how much courage it takes even to do those things, you kind of can see like why not everybody's able or chooses to develop that skill. So you can have a little bit more compassion for the fact that like that's not going to be in somebody's journey. Like that's not going to be in a lot of people's journey. And it might be for like your parents or siblings or whoever. Like that learning that skill takes so much intention and courage that it might just not be something that's on their journey or not right now in their journey. But you can maybe have a little bit more compassion for the kind of energy that it takes to learn that and then to do that. And then also, wait, what was I gonna say? Um, I lost my train of thought. It's okay to have, oh yeah, the messy conversations. Oh, right. What I was gonna say was that, ouch. Uh, Even more important to have the feeling of feelings practice, because you're gonna sometimes have a messy conversation and afterwards it's like a lot of mix of feelings, right? Maybe during that conversation like you tried really hard to express yourself but the person got defensive, or they started to blame you, or they started, whatever it is, they weren't open to hearing what you had to say, they told you it was your fault, whatever. um and then you leave that conversation and you feel like kind of angry at them for the way they reacted. You feel disappointed in the way that the conversation went. You feel disappointed in yourself because you feel like you could have done it better. You feel hurt by the way that, they blamed you. You feel really sad because you wanted it to go a lot better, and maybe you prepared for it, or you like really tried your best. Or you feel fear because now you're like, well, I don't even know what to do. Like, I don't even know what to say to them. I don't know how to handle this now going forward. Like, I feel like we didn't really resolve anything. Can I even have a relationship with this person again? So do you see how many feelings like there actually can be from just one situation? And so the feeling of feelings practice that I teach, literally it takes you like a matter of minutes to be able to process one feeling. And you do have to address all of those feelings, because you have to be honest with yourself. But I'm not asking you to sit there for an hour. The practice is not something where you like sit for an hour and you like feel, you have to feel through everything. Like you have to feel it, but literally the feeling of it and the validation of one feeling takes a few minutes. So the whole practice, but the intention, and as you get better at it, you like The intention is that you actually feel the weight of that feeling during those few minutes, though. Because we spend lifetimes, we spend days, weeks, months, years running from those feelings. Like, you could have that one conversation, walk away with those like 6 feelings that I mentioned, and then not do anything with those, and those just sit in your subconscious now for like days, weeks, months, years. People sit with this stuff for decades. You know, you could be angry, and then that's why they cling to the anger, because that one conversation, and then even though you had all that other like hurt and fear and sadness and all disappointment, you just cling to the fear because that's the one that feels the most powerful, because you're like, well, I tried and they didn't, they reacted this way and they blamed me and they shamed me and they tried to like tell me it was my fault. So, you know, and then you sit with the anger for a long time when you don't actually have to. And by the way, when we're doing the feelings of feelings practice, we're also not trying to figure out what to do. We're just setting the intention that we want to get this energy out of our bodies. Because when you're in the low vibration states of fear, anger, sadness, you know, resentment, hurt, you're not going to make the right decisions anyway. So even from that state, you don't know what the right decision is moving forward. So take that completely off the table. So often when something happens, like something uncomfortable or there's a conflict, we try to figure out like what we need to do. Like, all right, what do I need to do? Do I need to talk with them? Should I just ignore it? Like, blah, blah, blah. Instead of going there, because there's no way you could ever make the right decision, focus on feeling the feelings to get yourself back into a state of peace. And then from a state of peace, that's when you're going to make a really soul-aligned decision about what to do. Infinite, some of them want that response from you. They like you anxious, needy. Yeah, but I mean, even in that statement, what I'm hearing is that you maybe feel resentment towards people that you think might feel that way. But it doesn't actually matter. Like, in the end, it doesn't actually matter what response they want from you, or like what, because you don't actually know that for sure, but what you're actually focusing on is how they feel about how you feel, even in saying that. So I want us to take the focus off of what we think they feel or what they feel, put it back on you. Even in saying that, like, even in the idea that they might want you anxious, like, how does that make you feel? That is your responsibility. Does that make you angry? That they could feel that way? Feel your own anger. Stop focusing on what they feel. You see here, understand someone and you validate them, they'll be repelled by the needy energy. That's not true. Gorgeous hearted, this live is making me realize how much reactive and needy I've been acting for. Oh, well, I'm really glad that that it's helping you realize that. And I think really I think it's like really beautiful that you can acknowledge that for yourself, and that already takes a lot of courage. And then I think it's really just about developing a few skills. Like, it's not a lot of skills, my dears. I literally have 3 tools available in my link tree that I would say are the most critical lifetime life skills of all lifetime. Like, I think if I could teach every human those 3 skills, I think that the world would be in a lot better place, because we'd all know how to regulate ourselves better. Rip Wheeler's human. I'm tired of men thinking they have access to me. Well, it kind of sounds to me like you have some anger towards men that you need to handle. Oh, hey, Sunset. Good to see you, my dear. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for being here, Wild Tsugai. Of course, my dear. Grizel, are our boundaries at work to avoid burnout? Are you asking about that? Oops. Gorgeous hearted. Oh my God, you're making me feel so much less insane. Oh, I'm curious. Like, what did I say that touched that nerve that made you feel less insane? I'm just curious. It makes me feel clear, Infinite said. Cool. I'm gonna pop off in a few minutes, my dears. Grizel asked about boundaries at work to avoid burnout. That's such a personal thing for people. I think an obvious one, I don't know, maybe it's not obvious, but like when you email people, when you are available to communicate with people, are you available 24/7? Are you or do people expect that you're available at night? I think anytime you can negotiate things like maybe work from home that feels right for you, those could be good too. Like I work from home on X days. Gorgeous Hearted, you were giving an example of like all the thought cycling after an uncomfortable conversation. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Turns out we're all human and that happens to us all. Surprise, surprise. But what we don't learn is what to do with all of those things. Because it's not that all of those things are invalid, it's that we actually do have to feel all those things and validate them for ourselves. And it really does only take a few minutes, in some cases. I mean, when you first start, it might take a little bit longer, but when you really get good at it and you like really allow yourself to sit for that period of time and just allow yourself to feel the weight of all those things, or one at a time, you really have to kind of go one at a time sometimes. It it really makes an impact. It really helps you to get back to a state of peace and then to be able to know what to do. Infinite, there's a thin line between taking authorship of our lives and gaslighting ourselves. I disagree with that, actually. Well, I mean, I don't know exactly like what your line of thinking is, obviously, since that's just one sentence, but I think I think everything that I'm saying and sitting down and feeling every feeling is the opposite of gaslighting yourself. And that's what you have to take ownership of. All of those feelings that come up, you have to take ownership of the fear and the sadness and the anger and the disappointment. Those are your responsibility, and I think it's the opposite of gaslighting to say that now I actually have to sit down and take responsibility for those and feel them and validate them myself. This was so good. It's helpful every time. Thank you. You're welcome, my dear. Thanks for being here. Do you find these practices have made your relationships better? Oh, absolutely. Or just how to navigate them. Well, I would say that they've made my relationships more authentic. I would say that I show up more authentically. I would say that absolutely what you're going to notice, because you're going to show up more authentically, that all of your relationships will shift in some way. Some relationships will kind of peter out. Friendships, for example, some of them will change shape. They'll shift, kind of shape shift. Some people you maybe were close with, but that wasn't like necessarily a fully authentic version of you, or at least who you are now. So, I have friends who I was really close with, who I'm not as close with, but they're still in my life and I still love them. But, we've kind of grown in different directions. I think that what it's made me understand, helped me to understand, is that there's so much gray in between a black and white, like they're in my life or they're not. They either like fully see, hear, and understand me, or they don't. There's so much layers of gray in there where it's more about like me opening up to the possibilities of what relationships, of the millions of ways that relationships could take shape. And it doesn't have to be like they're my best friend or they're not in my life, or I'm like close with this family member, or we don't talk. It's like I get to kind of choose and lead the way in what feels the most comfortable for me. But, even in that journey, these tools have helped me so much because, when relationships are changing, like when friendships do change a little bit, which they always do and they always will, like there's sadness that comes up there, right? Like about how it's changing. And if I didn't have these tools to really like truly help me through the ways that relationships do change and it's natural for them to change, I might try to cling on to those things that are not actually serving me, that don't actually feel super authentic anymore. I would absolutely say with the people that want to stay in my life demonstrated even through my changes that they want to stay in my life. So that's been a beautiful thing too. So I don't exactly know what you mean by better relationships, but I think that they're more authentic. And I'm much more confident in my ability to be able to show up with anybody, to engage with anybody, because I'm actually meeting them where they're at. I'm not expecting them to meet me where I'm at, but I'm totally honest with myself about what their capability is. And I don't expect them anymore to meet me at a place where they're not capable. But because I can meet myself there and I know what it feels like for certain people to meet me there, I'm not upset with them that they can't meet me there. I'm totally able to like love them and accept them for who they are, for where they're at, for the place in their journey that they're at. And that feels so much more liberating than trying to like expect people to see, hear, and understand me. And because do you see how that's like always about you? It's like you're always trying to get something from someone. You're always trying to like, it's like, anxiety is a thing that really can feel very self-absorbed, because you're constantly trying to protect yourself. You're constantly trying to control things and other people. And so when you're in that space, like you're trying to get something from someone, you need this feeling of being seen, heard, and understood. And so I think it feels like I feel much more at peace not needing that. So I hope that helps. Moggable, I don't allow my girlfriend to talk to her family or friends, only me. Okay, well, that's very unhealthy. Gorgeous hearted, I'm frustrated because I feel like you're talking directly to me right now. Well, that's good. That means you're in the right place. And, I talk about spiritual things too, but I do believe that the universe leads you exactly to the place where you're meant to be. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that anybody that was here tonight was here and hearing the exact words that they were meant to hear. I think you tuned in at the exact right moment that you were supposed to, and that you heard the exact right things that you were supposed to, that you took away whatever you were supposed to. And I'm hopeful that it's helpful. But I'm going to sign off for now, my dears. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your existence and engagement here tonight. And I do hope that you took some important things away. This is something I really love to talk about, and I'm sending you all so much love and so much light. And I'll be back on Tuesday, 7:30. And I hope you have a great week until then. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. Bloom and Birth. Gorgeous Hearted. Thank you. Thank you, Purple Hearts. Bye, my friends.